please. City Council Committee on Government Services, Co-Postal Committee of the Whole, met in Council Chamber on Wednesday, January 16, 2013 at 6:00 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the matters listed below. Notice this meeting was posted on January 11, 2013, 9:06 a.m. Absent were a couple of cards absent from the committee, and we are going to discuss orders number 8, 11, 12, and 13. Mayor's appointments of Ben Anderson, Planning Board, Kurt Ryder, Planning Board, Tom Watkins, Zoning Board of Appeals, and David Epley, alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Present, myself, Councilor Sargent, Councilor Prevey, Councilor Sisnowski, Councilor Turiel, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Ryan, and new council, Bill Legault. And also former Councilor Matt Vino has joined us. And I'll open up any questions that may come forward. Councilor Sisnowski.
Before we start discussing this among ourselves, could we open the floor up to the people that have come here to make comment? Sure.
Oh, sure, if that be the will of the board.
Unless, if anybody has a question to start, the council takes priority, of course. However, that being said, if nobody wants to start this off, I would ask that we open it up to the floor.
Okay, and before we get going, I just want to be reminded there's a 6:30 A&F meeting on the lease at 120 Washington Street, just so we know, okay?
Okay.
All right, would that be the motion?
You don't need a motion on that.
I mean, motion to open up to the floor, I mean? Okay,
That'd be the will. Then I put forward a motion.
Any questions from the audience, please? Easy? Yeah, please approach, state your name and address, and
T.C. Riley Goggin, 9 Wisteria Street. I will pose the same thoughts of the information I'm seeking on the lease that will be coming up. Do we want me to address it now about the annex, or do you want me to wait until such time as the annex comes out?
That's the next meeting.
yeah, the annex will be 6:30.
All right, fine. I didn't know if it was a one-shot deal at the beginning or not, right?
This is
No.
a separate committee, and
I will tell you, I am very happy then that you are addressing appointments of people that will be forthcoming to our boards and commissions. After attending many, many, many over a number of years, I sometimes look at the chances that we have as public input, as people of a city who really and truly get into different areas, that do their homework, that live in the neighborhoods that are going to be impacted by some of the decisions that are made. And they don't seem to listen, and I would hope now that more questions will be put forth and more training will go to the people who will be part of these boards or commissions so that they know what this city needs. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Darrell Libovici, 122 Federal Street. I'm talking with regard to the proposed board appointments. I'm here because I think there have been two sets of behaviors of some of the boards, not all of them, and the two that are of particular concern to me are the zoning and planning boards, which are in fact the subject of tonight's meeting. The two kinds of behavior that I think need to be addressed are, first of all, the cases of where boards have acted systematically, serially, frequently in violation of the law, in violation of their charters. And there are a lot of examples of that, and I'd be prepared to give them. But I would just cite as examples the number of lawsuits against these boards that have come up over the last, I would say, 6 years or so, roughly. The second category of behavior that I think needs to be addressed is the arrogance and the disrespect of various board members and, well, let me just leave it that way, various board members towards members of the public who choose to appear at board hearings to speak, as TC just suggested, and in a recent case, towards this council as a whole. Now, I think the remedies, well, first of all, I think remedies are necessary. And secondly, I suggest that there are a number of different kinds of them. I'm speaking as a layman. I can't tell you the details of, how legal they are, what it would take to make them legal, and so on. But let me just give you some examples. The first one is more detailed scrutiny of the individual members that are nominated for these boards. I do not know personally the people here that are nominated here tonight, and I have no specific comments with regard to any of them, except one of them has in the past been an employee of the city. I don't know if he still is. If he is, I would view that as an obvious conflict of interest and reason for turning that one down. Another thing that I think is an appropriate remedy for these kinds of problems is recall. If board members systematically act against the law, against the charter, and against the interests of the city and their citizens, I think there should be a mechanism for recall by the council. I think another potential mechanism would be to have an appeal mechanism to the council, which is supposed to represent the city, whereby if citizens or groups of citizens, given some appropriate threshold, could appeal to the council to reverse a particular action, such as a variance or special permit, which on the surface of it is in fact illegal. There are very specific terms under which variances can be granted, and the flagrant violation of those terms has been a serious problem in recent years. And I guess the other potential remedy, which I don't think is the topic of tonight's conversation, but I think there's been discussion in the past of having an ordinance which would require certain categories of actions by boards, which again achieved a certain threshold of significance or size, would require approval by the council. Those are, I think, the problems we're facing, and I think those are potential remedies. The fact that we have a system in which most of the nominations come from the administration makes them subject to a certain kind of abuse, which is where people presenting a certain ideological or political position are advanced, and others who might differ with that are not. I will give you one specific example of that before I stop. There was an individual from Federal Street, a relatively new person in Salem, who comes with a tremendous background of experience on planning boards in other cities, public service in various ways. Highly qualified individual. This individual was screened for 2 hours by our planning director, who asked her in great detail how she would have voted on each of a number of actions before the boards. And because I gather she gave the wrong answer, there was no further consideration of her candidacy. Now, I would therefore propose as a final remedy that there be a mechanism, which I don't think exists presently, but I'd be glad to be corrected on this, that there be alternative means for nominating candidates to boards by citizens or citizen groups. Thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you. Former Councilor Vino.
Thank you. Matt Vino, 20 Forest Avenue. I'll be very brief. I know you have a lot of work ahead of you. I just want to speak in favor of two appointments that are before you this evening. Ben Anderson for the Planning Board. Well, let me just talk a little bit about Ben. When I was on the City Council, I got to know Ben through some neighborhood issues, actually a development that was being proposed for Mr. Bertini's property on the corner of Canal Street and Jefferson Avenue. And that's actually how he came to my attention, and we later became friends. But he really distinguished himself as somebody who brought some really important technical skill and background in his area of expertise to the discussion, was able to speak very specifically to the board on some elements of the proposal, and just brought a great practical perspective of that we often deal with here and see dealt with at the zoning board and the planning board about residential areas and how they, when they abut commercial areas, how that can sometimes be bumpy. So I think he just brought a great perspective to both of those issues, and I would speak very strongly in favor of his approval. The approval of his appointment. Secondly, just say a brief word about Tom Watkins, also another Ward 5 resident and neighbor of mine, who I think will just serve exceptionally well on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think he's served the city very well as purchasing agent, and his judgment, I think, will add a good deal to the work of the ZBA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Prevey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask then, why don't we just move forward and have the candidates come forward, and then we can ask whatever questions we want, and we can start with Mr. Anderson.
Oh, sure. Is Mr. Anderson here now? Would that be?
We don't think we got the notice.
Right. There's a chance he may not have got the notice, so I don't think we'll hold that against him whatsoever, because Tom didn't get a notice. Tom Watkins didn't get a notice in the mail.
So shall we start with Tom then?
If that be the choice,
Yeah.
Tom, could you come up, please?
Hi.
Hi, Tom Watkins, 76 Ocean Ave. How you guys doing?
You're welcome, Tom. Council Prevey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Tom, thanks for putting your name forward, and obviously we want to have everyone in that the mayor submitted, just to kind of have a conversation and go over some things and give ourselves also an opportunity to kind of express our view about the board and some of our experiences, because a lot of times when we appoint folks to the board, it's a missed opportunity for the council, because we really never get an opportunity to have those conversations again. So having said that, you're being proposed to be on the ZBA. Could you just explain to the committee as to why you want to be on the ZBA, and what are some of the skills that you think you would bring to the board to kind of enhance it based on your understanding of what the ZBA does and what the responsibilities are?
Sure, glad to. Being a lifelong resident of Salem, I've always been wanting to get involved with Salem. I love the city, just like all you do. I have a very strong interest here. I've always wanted to get involved with neighborhood issues, serve on a board of commission. I couldn't do that over the past 5 years, having worked for the city, be it obviously a conflict of interest. So now that I'm not working for the city, I thought it'd be a good time to get involved. Excuse me, I saw the ZBA as a good opportunity to work directly with residents, with homeowners, with businesses in town who are applying for special permits, and helping to weigh those issues by the letter of the law, and also listening to the residents themselves and addressing their concerns, taking their concerns into consideration, as well as listening to what Tom St. Pierre says and weighing those issues. That's something that I think I can bring to the board as part of a strong suit of mine, having to weigh difficult issues like that, the interests of a resident, a business owner, as well as the letter of the law and what the law says. And of course, going by the law is the law. So you got to go by that many times. But you also have to take into consideration the concerns of those who are in the room as well.
Right. Okay. And one of the things that you brought up, I think, which is important, I think some of us have felt probably the last couple of years in terms of the boards just not really focusing in on what some of the impacts are in the neighborhood. Certain board members, yes, other board members, no. And you can kind of see for as many times as we go in front of the board, certain board members kind of stand out as people who really are trying to weigh different interests and provide the balance between the proposal that is in front of them, but also some of the issues that the neighbors through the neighborhood are bringing up. And it seems, I've gotten the impression, I know in talking with some of my colleagues on the council, we've gotten the impression over the time that a lot of the issues that are brought forward by the neighbors end up being kind of discounted in favor of the proponent who's putting forward the project or the support of the project. So
Yeah.
that's one of the concerns, to make sure that folks that are getting on the board, that they understand, as you pointed out, there is a balance. You got to hear everything, you got to weigh everything appropriately and make the best decision. Doesn't mean you have to agree with the neighbors, doesn't mean you have to agree with us, obviously, but making sure everyone has had an opportunity to kind of weigh in, and the issues that were raised, that the board was able to address them somehow through the different expertise that exists there, because obviously there's a lot of, there's often a development team that's involved with different, an architecture or, traffic consultant, stuff like that. So we want to make sure that those things are taken into consideration, and that as best as possible, the board can try to address the concerns in a lot of the mitigation issues that come up in trying to alleviate some of the impacts on the neighborhood. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm coming from in trying to do this. So I certainly appreciate you in your thoughts and comments on that.
Sure thing.
So.
I'll start. Anybody else? Council Sosnowski, please.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I got a couple of questions for you, Tom.
Mhm.
The ZBA has been making some decisions recently that I absolutely do not agree with. All right, for example, Riverview Place, all right, the Salem Oil and Grease property.
Yeah.
They came in, they asked for, it was zoned for 53. They came in asking for 164. And the ZBA felt good when they only allowed them 130. What's your opinion on that?
It sounds like a happy median between the two parties involved. You're addressing the concerns of the wants of the developer, along with the concerns of the neighbors, the abutting neighbors in the area. And it sounds like that was, to me, it sounds like it was a good compromise.
What would you do if an overwhelming group of neighbors were to come in and say they were opposed?
Got to listen to them all, yeah.
Would you
certainly.
still feel that way and vote that way?
I'd take each case on a case-by-case basis and listen to them all and decide upon that. I know it depends, I guess, on what they're concerned about and what their real issues is, but or real issues are. So
Most of the ones that I listen to are concerned about a diminishing quality of life in their neighborhood. Toward that end, they make their statements. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But basically, definitions of qualities can be whatever they are. But based on the mission statement of the ZBA, the mission statement being to protect the quality of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I think granting 130 is an abomination. Right, and I think it should never have happened, ever.
Yeah. Again, I'm not all that familiar with the project.
understand that.
From what I read in the paper, but it's something certainly that I would take into consideration, the residents and the developer as well.
Right, obviously, you can't be held accountable for the actions of a different group from a different time, right? And we go on from there. If a similar thing were to come up and there were an awful lot of opposition, how would you feel at that point? Valid opposition.
Yeah, as long as the opposition's valid, does it impact the traffic in the neighborhood? What kind of impacts does it have on traffic? What kind of impacts does it have on overall quality of life of people? Does it harm people's views or obstruct people's views to ocean, to parkland, so forth? Those types of concerns are certainly legit, certainly valid concerns that would be weighed heavily in my mind going forward with any type of decision I was going to make serving on the board.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Just reminded it's 6:20, we have a meeting at 6:30, so we can move forward as,
Well, may I comment on that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked, because it's my committee, that the meeting I posted at 6:30 in the event that I originally wanted it at 7 to allow us enough time, but the city clerk advised me that I should post it early in the event we ended before 7, because if it's posted at 7, you can't start before 7. So it just allows us the flexibility to do
very
that,
good.
so.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. through you. I just want to thank Tom for putting his name in. I think he'll be great on the ZBA. Councilor Sosnowski and Prevey asked some good questions. My concern, it all goes back to, a lot of times you see a lot of projects go through, they don't reject a lot. On the ZBA, once you get on there, you're pretty independent, so you don't really have to listen to the council or the mayor, because you're in there, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And I think you're smart enough to make your own decision. You already said that you look at both sides of the issues. I just feel like on a ZBA, they should be looking at more, like when the applicant comes in, the burden of proof is gonna be on them, and a lot of times, when it gets passed by the ZBA, if a resident has to appeal it, it's expensive. It should be the other way around, like if, it's just, I don't know, it's tough, because then on the small person that comes in, you don't wanna, someone wants to put an addition on their house or something, you don't want to put more of a burden on them. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you put your name in, because I know that the way you said it, you're going to be independent, and that's
Yeah.
all we're looking for, and that's all you can ask. Because once you get in there, I mean, as long as you make your own decision, and you've lived in Salem your whole life, so I trust your judgment.
Thank you.
Councilor
If
Sosnowski
any other
again?
council wants to speak first. That being said, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't doubt that Tom has every good intention. I don't doubt that any of these people that are mentioned tonight have the good intentions, and I would like to think that we're in America and people are pretty much innocent until proven guilty. However, that being said, I'm under the impression that, or not the impression, I know for a fact, that once we confirm a mayor's appointment, and I have no reason to deny Tom or any of the others right at this point. The problem is what happens if after we've confirmed them, they repeatedly violate the mission of the board or commission that they're appointed to? There is absolutely no mechanism in place for that. Toward that end, I would probably be thinking about bringing in an ordinance that said, hey, this person, in my opinion, I think is violating that. And obviously, because I don't agree with them doesn't mean that I'm right. And because I don't agree with them doesn't mean that I'm wrong either. However, that being said, I would think that there'd be something here where we should bring that person back before maybe the Government Services Committee, maybe your committee, Mr. Chair, and say, hey, and put it before the full council and see if 11 councilors agree that this person is violating the mission or not. If he's not violating the mission, things are fine. Or I shouldn't say he or she for that matter, all right? And then we go from there. I have to tell you that the other day when we had the planning board in here, I was a little disappointed in some of them. 7 councilors were before the planning board. 6 of us made it perfectly clear that we didn't agree with what was going on. 6 of us made it perfectly clear, and yet they did it anyway. Some of this also has to do with the fact that the routing of certain projects that go before the development has nothing to do with whether there's good, bad, or indifferent people on these boards. It has to do with sometimes the lawyers come in and the project goes before the ZBA first, then it goes before the planning board, then it goes before Concom, and then it goes before the Historic Commission. Sometimes when it suits their purpose, the orders get switched around, and I don't necessarily understand why that is, because some projects go before the planning board first, then the ZBA. Yeah. Some of the concerns I've been hearing from certain members of past boards here is on the Conservation Commission. Don't you think that should be something up front first before it goes to anybody? Or the Historic Commission? And then it should go to the ZBA, because quite honestly, even though I'm a little agitated with the planning board right now, a lot of what they have been doing recently, I won't say recently, in the past years, the ZBA makes a decision. Whether I like it or don't like it, in the cases where I don't like it, it gets then passed along because the decision's been made by a majority of the group. It gets passed along to the planning board, and the planning board is left essentially trying to clean up a package that essentially has already been approved. So in their defense, the horse is out of the barn at that point. So I'm a little concerned with that. So I mean, maybe routing of these things needs to be consistent, where it needs to go for things here to get to an end point. Because it doesn't seem to have consistency, and I don't necessarily understand why things change in that area, but that's just some of the things that I'll be talking about at some later point.
Can I interject a valid concern, but well, Mr. Watkins won't be able to settle that for us, so I will, if we have any more, keep it, any more questions.
I don't mean to drift off, of course, here, but I mean, the thing is, We've known Tom for a long time. He's worked here in the city halls for a lot of years. Worked across the street at the Annex for a bit, all right? And, yeah, I don't have a problem with Tom. But, I mean, if after we confirm him, he repeatedly violates what I believe to be the mission statement of the board, then I'm gonna have a problem with him or anybody else. And right now, problem or not, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
That concerns me.
Understood. Any other questions from the council? Council McCarthy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Watkins. Tom, thanks for putting your name in.
Sure thing.
Obviously, anybody who wants to step up and serve on any board within the city, I mean, it's a volunteer position, and, you know, that being said, you know, you have been, you know, I've always found you to be very, even my dealings with you throughout your time at working for the city, you've always been, you were always upfront and honest with me, so I appreciate that, and I believe you'll take that to the board. All that being said, if there's no further questions, being a member of the committee, I would move that Mr. Watkins' appointment be sent to the full council.
Second on that?
I'll second it. Oh,
Second on that? Members of the committee will vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None being? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? I heard from Mr. Anderson, he is downtown for the ZBA meeting, and he did not get notice of this.
All right.
So he's
we
going to
s-
try and run by here for a minute, and
If he's able to make it over, we could,
so he's going to try and rush over here to,
if it be okay with the committee, we'll bring him in as soon as he comes in so we can get back over to that meeting.
he'll probably be here in a couple of minutes, and then he'll get back over the ZBA meeting.
All right,
Want to bring the next one up?
next in order would be, going on, I'll go with, could we have a mayor's appointment of Kurt Ryder? Mr. Ryder, please?
Good evening.
Thank you.
Actually, it's pronounced Reader, just
sorry,
to set
sorry.
the stage.
Mistake.
So, thank you.
That won't happen again. Mr. Anderson here?
Yeah.
Mr. Reader, would you be gracious enough to allow Mr. Anderson to step in so he can get back to that, that Board of Appeals? Mr. Anderson, please.
Hi, how are you? I apologize, I didn't realize I was supposed to be here.
Oh, we take, our fault on that one. Are you looking to head back over to the Board of Appeals meeting?
Yeah, that's supposed to
Okay,
start
well,
shortly. Yep.
Committee will keep that in mind, please. Thank you. Council Prevey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Anderson, the mayor had submitted a letter to us, but the other submittals that were given to us, there was a resume that was submitted, and I imagine that you submitted a resume.
I did.
At some point to the mayor's office. In her letter, you had put that you had 23 years of experience in architecture and engineering. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that experience?
Sure. I have a professional degree in architecture. Graduated from Boston Architectural Center in 1996. I've been working in the trades since then. I am not a licensed architect. I do still have 4 exams to complete on that. It's just sort of a matter of timing. I've done a lot of commercial and retail work architecturally. I've also run an office, been in charge of 51 architects and engineers. I do a lot of presentations in front of zoning boards and planning boards for some of the retail clients that I have, mostly supermarkets, Whole Foods, Hannaford, Stop and Shops in the past. So I'm very familiar with the process and what generally is being presented to boards on the owner side and also as a resident in the city of Salem for 15 years. I've also done quite a bit of project management for the company. We're a large global corporation that I work for. Pretty intensive design process and financial management process. as I said before, I've been in the business 23 years, lots of experience, and been around the block and seen just about everything.
Well, we certainly appreciate you putting your name forward to the mayor and offering to serve on the board, because we understand it's a big commitment.
Sure.
To be committed, not only to make the meetings, but also to obviously study projects, go on site visits, do kind of your own research on particular things that are being proposed. And one of the things that many of us in the council are concerned about is making sure that the board is cognizant of some of the issues that come up that impact the neighborhood, especially major developments where there's going to be a major alteration of the neighborhood going forward. Because the boards, when they make decisions, their decisions are, unless they get appealed in Superior Court, they end up being long-lasting for decades, generations to come. And so some of us have experienced a level of frustration with some of the boards recently where we just feel that not necessarily that the board agreed with our perspective, but that the board was, for lack of a better word, almost ignoring some of the issues that we bring up. And most recently in front of the planning board, many of us kept going in front of the board and beating the same drum over and over again.
Just 1 second, I'm gonna flip this over. Okay, go ahead, thank you.
And it felt as if, all the things that we were saying as counselors and what the neighbors are expressing to the board, it just turned out to be like background noise to them. And so, that's something I think that some of us have been concerned about lately. That did not always exist in years past. There's a different flavor to it. I don't like it. I know some of us don't like it. And we're trying to make sure that we have a better understanding of who are the folks that are getting on the board and what our perspective is. And that's why we're having this conversation.
Sure. I'm very familiar with neighborhood issues. I'm a neighbor of the CVS that just went into Bertini's property and was quite cognizant of the neighborhood issues in that development. My opinion is that a development should meet the requirements of the city zoning and planning. It should also address issues related to neighborhoods, but it also should address some of the concerns that the owners have and property owners. So I think it's a tough responsibility to weigh all those issues. 3 issues that are very important to each party that are considering the proposal that may be in front of the board. So, I think you have to take all the opinions. I would rely on some of my professional experience and background and how projects that I've represented in the past have been benefits to the neighborhoods or benefits to the owners or benefits to the city. Each of them has its positive and sometimes negative aspects of a development. So, I can't give you a specific bent on pro-retail or pro-development. It's on a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
And you have to weigh all those issues and address them.
And we certainly understand that we
Sure.
we don't want to start throwing out hypotheticals without specifics of project. It's just like anything else. I always say it's somewhat similar to Supreme Court justices. You don't know what you think you know what you're getting in the end until the justice gets to the court and then begins to rule how they view on those cases. So,
Sure.
But certainly we want to be part of the vetting process to feel more comfortable about your background, experience, and what you're going to bring to the board. We certainly appreciate you coming forward and volunteering to do that.
Yeah, if I could take a step back, I did submit the resume, but I didn't submit it to Kim's office. I submitted it to the city planner, Duncan. So she has it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have a copy of that also. Any other questions, please? Might I interject? It was refreshing to see, have Councilor Vino and Councilor Turiel explain to us your involvement in the CVS.
Oh, good.
I think you of all people will understand what neighbors are going through when development comes in and change comes in, and I think you'll be very sensitive of that process, and it's just nice to see somebody who's been through that process and had that worry be on the board making those decisions.
Yeah.
And it gives me a lot of confidence, and I appreciate you getting involved from the ground up on that.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. We had the pleasure of meeting, but I've heard a lot about you from Council Vino and from Council Terrell. even your involvement in the CVS project and how you really helped to make that project better for everybody. So I want to commend you for that, and I want to really thank you for stepping up and wanting to serve on this board. I think that speaks volumes of your character, and I think you're going to do a fine job. I think you'll be able to be objective. All that being said, if there's being a member of the committee, if there's no other, I would make a motion that Mr. Anderson's appointment be sent to the full council for approval.
Have a second?
Second.
Celsi, all those in favor? Opposed? No opposition? The motion carries. Thank you.
Good luck at the ZBA meeting.
Good luck at the ZBA. Thank you.
Shoot me a message.
Thank you.
Now, back with Mr. Reader, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council Pre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through Mr. Reader, you have a background in urban planning and landscape architecture. Could you talk a little bit more about that experience? And before you do, I want to thank you as well for putting your name forward, and we appreciate your presence here tonight. And certainly on behalf of the city, we thank you for your.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. That's fantastic. I have an undergraduate in urban planning and a master's in landscape architecture. And for the last decade, I've functioned as a principal in a landscape architecture design firm that does projects pretty much around the world. Currently, I am managing projects in Richmond, Virginia, and New Orleans, both of which are very much historic cities that have very deep roots in this country. And just by the virtue of being 200 to 300 years old, they have a heck of a lot of built urban form that is subject to a great deal of scrutiny, both by their respective administrations as well as the residents who live there. So as a design firm principal, we specialize in urban waterfronts and riverfronts mostly, but we often, either as prime or as a subconsultant, operate in such a way that we are either working with developers or directly for a city. And in both of those projects, we looked at working with both municipalities to generate a master plan that would allow the insertion of both development revenue-producing properties as well as public open space expansion. So I do have quite a lengthy background in working through the process, both as a consultant direct to a city, to a mayor, to the city councilors, as well as working on the private side for private developers. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm familiar with the process of going through a planning board, and I've seen the highs and lows. Some planning boards are very much engaged and have done their homework, and others are woefully unprepared and are unable to act in a prudent way to represent their public constituencies.
So kind of speak about that. Some of the board members I made reference to, I didn't reference them by name, but, just off the top of my head as I've gone through the boards, the ones that really kind of engage and ask questions and drill down deep, I mean, those are the ones that really kind of stand out as folks that have done their homework and bring, whatever expertise they have to the board and really kind of make the process much more engaging to the public, because it seems that some of those board members are the ones that really try to address the concerns that are being put forward on specific projects. And just given the experience that you've described, I certainly see you as being very helpful, especially when it comes to site plan review, because that's something that the planning board does a lot of, and that's really where the project in its raw form gets kind of shaped and molded over a period of time. So I certainly think that you'll be very helpful in doing that, especially during the public hearing process, where the public is weighing in on certain concerns, and you're trying to balance that with what the proponent of the project is trying to accomplish. So certainly thank you for that, and the expertise that you have for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? No, I kind of caught on to your experience going before other planning boards. You'll know the other side of it well, and I think that'll help you in being on the board, and I think it's good experience. And besides your expert knowledge of the the field, having that experience being before boards, I think will really work well for us. Council McCarthy.
Seeing no further discussion, once again, thank you for your coming forward and submitting your name. I think you'll do
Please, thank you.
a great job. I would move that the appointment of Mr. Kurt
Reader, thank
Reader,
you.
thank you, be sent to the full council for approval.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? And, thank you again for
Thank you all.
putting your name in there. And now, we have Mr. David Epley. Council preview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Epperly, thank you for putting your name forward. We appreciate your willingness to serve, and you've kind of heard the general tone of the discussion, so without me kind of going into the details about it, since I know you paid attention, I'll just kind of leave it to you to kind of go through as to why you want to be in the ZBA and kind of what's your overall philosophy and approach to what a board member on the ZBA should be doing in terms of the performance and with the matters that come in front of the ZBA.
First of all, thank you to all of you, but specifically I want to thank Councilor Prevey for referring these appointments to committee, because being a new guy in Salem, I've been here for about 5 years now, being a new guy in Salem, I assumed that all of these appointments would go through a committee process. There would be a vetting of any of these candidates. It makes a lot of sense, and so I appreciate you're doing it. Whether you vote me up or down, I don't, in that respect, that is immaterial. So I wanted to start off by saying that. Also, I'm David Epley. I'm at 69 Boston Street in Salem in Ward 4. And I just want to mention that until very recently, and I've been part of this process of applying to get on the zoning board. Unwittingly, I'm here as a result in Salem. As a result of I think the positive decisions that have been made by folks like the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, the Historical Society, because I live in the Pope House, which is at 69 Boston Street. And that's a success story in which a house that was set to be razed was essentially saved by this city and by a lot of very interested folks. And it was a win-win situation. It was certainly a win for my husband and I in being new residents of Salem, in occupying a historic dwelling, and also for our neighbors downstairs with that unit. But it's also a win for Salem in having 4 additional condominiums that are available for housing for, again, professional couples here within Salem. Why was I interested in the zoning board? Well, I'll be completely frank with you. I approached Mayor Driscoll and said, I want to be involved in the city. Where is there a need? And one of the first things that Mayor Driscoll mentioned is we need new people, some revitalization on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so I put my name in. I am an attorney. I graduated from Boston University School of Law in 2000. I've practiced. I'm not a real estate attorney. I'll start off by saying that I'm not a real estate attorney. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm a divorce attorney, and in the divorce realm, one of the things that you learn is how to be patient. And I think I hope will be some of the skills that I will bring in. I've served as a conciliator and a mediator within the domestic relations realm. I can't imagine that there's any applicable skills in terms of petulant children and others coming into a city meeting of some kind. But that aside, in all seriousness, what I see is when you have a situation that is essentially based on 3 different things. It's a 3-legged stool. You have the issue of the law and following the law, and that's very important. As a lawyer, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is making sure that we follow the law. So whether that's the zoning ordinances for the city of Salem, whether that's a city charter, whether it's Chapter 40A, which has to specifically do with zoning within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that needs to be followed. We don't have the option of not following the law. Okay, so that's the first part of that 3-legged stool. The other part of the 3-legged stool is feasibility. Does it make sense? Does it work? And that's where I have no skill. That's why I'm in the law, is because I have absolutely no skills. The skill set that I have, I'm not in urban planning. I'm not an architect. I don't have those skills. So I'm going to rely upon those experts and the people who are proposing those different variance requests and special permits to have done their homework, and I'm going to follow up and make sure that that's the case. So that's the second part of the stool. The third part of the stool is acceptance. Is there public acceptance for what the proponent that's coming before the ZBA, is there public acceptance of what's being proposed? You know, you can't have that particular project stand without complying with all three of those things: the law, whether it's feasible, and whether people will accept it. So that's how I would approach it. I would take it from a balanced approach, make sure that I've listened to everyone, and then, you know, make a decision. And I'm going to be independent. I will listen to everyone. I'm not going to, you know, be beholden to Mayor Driscoll or any mayor. I'm not going to be beholden to the city council in that respect. So I would hope to be an independent voice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. David, couldn't say it any better myself. You are not beholden to us or anybody else. And that's my thing in a nutshell. I would ask all the members to serve as I do. Take everything that comes before you on its own merit and do whatever work you feel is necessary, and that's your vote. And we'll come over there and plead our case, and I'll always leave it with, I hope you'll consider that. And in the end, it's your vote. And we don't get them all right. We're not asking for the board members to get it all right all the time either. We're all human, and I appreciate that was a good statement you gave. Thank you. Any other questions?
Actually, I have one.
Council Preview, please.
David, and I'll leave it to you whether you want to answer this or not. Are you planning on running for Ward 4 councilor?
I am, and thank you for. I am planning on running for Ward 4 council. If I am elected, obviously I would resign from this position. If I'm not elected, it is my intention to stay on and be part of the ZBA for as long as the council and the mayor will let me.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We might want you to stay if you get elected. We've never had a councilor on a board before. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But, just kidding. But Council McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David, as I said to everyone, thanks for stepping up. I mean, I've got to know you a little bit, you know, running for the governor's council this last election, and, you know, through some different events, and I think that you'll bring a unique perspective to the board, and I think you'll do a great job. All that being said, if there's no further discussion, I would recommend that Mr. Epley's nomination for the alternate position for the zoning board of appeals be sent to the full council for approval.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Unanimous? Thank you, and thank you very much for your service. Council McCarthy.
Move we adjourn.
Just before,
Is there someone left?
Madam Mayor, would you like to speak?
offer a few comments. I know we have another meeting, but
Oh, please, come on up.
I just wanted to, I guess, I echo some of the other sentiments about your appreciate the vetting and sort of the process of giving all of you a chance to meet these candidates in more depth. But I also, I'd sort of be remiss if I feel a little bit like some of our existing planning board members who are not here were denigrated and maybe held up as in a way that people have found fault with some of their actions. And so I want to say two things. One, about the process, about how we come up with bringing people before you today. Many of you may recall when I was first elected, we actually opened up board and commission appointments. We had never openly solicited board and commission appointments. Applications on the website came through with recommendations. We still have that form, it's up. Oftentimes we review letters of interest, resumes, and make recommendations for appointments. Sometimes other board members will recommend folks. Sometimes I don't even meet them. This is actually the first time Kurt Reeder and I have actually met. But I feel like we're really fortunate that in opening up that process, we saw so many people who were interested in serving but had just never been asked, and have actually able to put board members in place in various capacities that have a wealth of skills. Sometimes we couldn't even afford to hire them, but they're willing to volunteer for our community. And there's a tremendous amount of work and time, as you know, that go into serving on a board, particularly the meatier land use boards, whether it's the ZBA or the planning board, where there are lengthy projects or, you know, can sometimes be contentious issues in neighborhoods. And it pains me to hear that people feel like issues were ignored or weren't addressed, or that concerns of neighbors really are sort of like background noise. One, because we take impact seriously. Many of the projects that you've mentioned, I've met with neighbors personally to hear from them. So I don't want people to ever think we're ignoring concerns. As a former planning board member, I know the detail that board members go through, from site visits to peer reviews to analysis to lengthy meetings. And there certainly, as of late, has seemed to be, whether it's the Salem Suede site, which members of this body, some supported, some didn't, or Salem Oil and Grease, where there seemed to be certainly some concerns. While there were disagreements, I'd hate to have the whole process sort of indicted that the planning board went through, and the hours and the time and the effort, and the way they did address the impacts, all of which may not have been to everyone's liking, but I think people really try hard and earnestly to address those things. And I also, I guess, want to put some context around the number of projects we've had, and I've said this before. I don't think that there's a debacle out there. We may not all like the way the Parker Brothers site looks, or, I don't think that riprap wall of Fafford is my favorite wall of choice in terms of aesthetics. But I can't really point to a project that I think any of our boards, with all of their professional expertise as volunteers and all of the peer review and analysis that comes together, that we've really blown it. And I would not say that's the case with the projects that are there. And I guess I'd also like to lay to rest any notion that I'm personally calling board members or, putting people under a thumb, or it just doesn't operate that way. We appoint good people, we provide them with information, and we get out of the way. The last piece, and you're probably sick of me talking already, is some of these are rules and laws that exist. What board a developer chooses to go to first, or a property owner, is up to them, not up to us. We don't get to say, go there first or go here first. Those are choices that property owners get to make. All of these boards, site plan review, there's a long legal litany, variances. Some of them have been appealed and they've been upheld. I would hope that would, while you may not disagree with the decision, would also recognize that we're doing things right. We really are trying to follow the law and be earnest and address impacts. And I hope when there are disagreements, that you view it as people working hard who just may not agree with you. And the very last component would be, please, my door is always open. If you feel as though neighbors have gotten short shrift, or an issue or concern of yours in particular was not addressed, I would love to know about it. I would like to be aware of it, and I would like to help. I think I appreciate the process you're going through in terms of trying to get better knowledge around some of the applicants. I hope you join me in really celebrating, one, their desire to volunteer, but more importantly, the skill set they bring here. And I certainly look forward to more partnerships of putting good people in place, letting them do their work. And when we disagree with maybe the decision they came up with, I don't think it's about the process or the people. It's just that we disagree.
Council Preedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for your comments. One of the things I want to bring to your attention in terms of the boards, I think that I didn't identify or talk about is, and I did speak with the city solicitor about it, is making sure that board members are aware of the open meeting law. And there was a recent violation of one where I stood up in front of the board, brought to the chair and the board's attention, and I was completely ignored. The board went ahead and voted on it, and there was a violation. So,
which board is this, Paul?
Conservation Commission. There was something that was on the agenda. The proponent came in. They completely changed the plan. The board, without the public notice being changed, I stood up. I said, this is a violation. The board said, we're going to vote on it anyways after some discussion amongst them. And they went ahead and they approved it. And I was flabbergasted at that action. I've never seen anything like that before. But like I said, I brought it to the city solicitor's attention. She's looking into it.
I'm glad you did. We did a board training. Some of you, I think, participated in it maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. It was a Saturday at Salem State where we brought in, some land use experts, conflict of interest. We covered a sort of a litany of issues. It's probably not a bad idea to kind of do something like that again. And I'd love to make it actually annually. So,
right. That was going to be my point, that maybe some training needs to go on, maybe more regular, because when we get new folks on the board, just in terms of how boards run, sometimes I think there's also distraction where you see a larger board like the planning board, where you got 9 members.
Right.
All of a sudden you'll see a discussion taking place with a proponent, and you're listening to it, and you got board members having side conversations with each other. They're not raising their hand to be called on by the chair. They're talking, and it makes for a very frustrating experience when you're trying to follow everything. So if training is available, and the city can certainly sponsor that and offer that to board members, I think that would be tremendous.
I think that's a good suggestion. We've done. I think it was the first time we had ever done it collectively, so we could welcome the opportunity to do it again.
Okay. Appreciate
for sure.
it. Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Ryan, please.
Thank you. I agree with most, when you say like all those projects out there, there's really not one you can think of, and hopefully Salem Oil and Grease project will come to that, but my problem with that whole thing was, I mean, the planning board's independent, they can vote the way they want, but we had all these people, counselors here, and residents complaining. Like, my opinion was they should have rejected it and let the applicant appeal it to actually get this whole 50% thing. Like, we told them what we meant when we were doing the zoning change, and it got interpreted, there was legal opinions. I just thought that it should have been, there was questions there that not even, maybe just even one person on the planning board would say no, and the project still passed. I mean, hopefully this project is gonna be fine, and it won't, we'll look back and say, what were we worried about? But I just thought that listening to, I went to almost every single meeting, that at least one of them would have said, you know, no, I mean, there's still questions here. That just concerned me, but I mean, they are independent, I'll give them that, and my opinion's different than theirs, but the problem is down the road, we're gonna have to deal, or whoever the counselor is gonna have to deal with the issues that come up with that. I mean, hopefully everything works out, but I was just concerned about that. For the most part, I don't have a problem with the boards, they're pretty independent. And, like you said, you really can't look at a project, you look back and you wish you had like Parker Brothers, the commercial site, but it wasn't gonna happen, so. But I think the training would be good, because I've seen other things times where me and Counselor Sargent went to go to a meeting, and the lawyer was pretty much, for the proponent, was telling the board what to do. And that didn't seem right. I mean, there's a lot of issues that I think need to be cleared up. But,
I mean, one of the things that we've done early on is all the boards are staffed now. I mean, so we're certainly trying to make amends, whether it's the ZBA. Remember, it used to, we didn't always have full-time sort of planning staff, so that, yeah, the applicant shouldn't be, you know, setting the agenda and telling us what to do. It really is trying to provide some staff guidance, but not pressure in terms of what to do. And I just hate to see one or two projects that there may have been strong disagreements with or contentious mar what's a very good planning board that reviews lots of projects. Our process, I'll compare it to any city in the Commonwealth. Peer reviews, analysis, public hearings, every meeting an opportunity for commenting. Those projects that come in and what actually gets voted out in terms of a decision, markedly different. Lots of impacts addressed. So, you know, we don't have to go far to look at any of the processes that's used in our neighbors around these issues. Nothing like that. There's no peer reviews in a lot of communities. And that certainly isn't the gold standard, but I think we have people working hard, and to hear, oh, they're just ignoring it, and they don't really care, and they don't, I don't think that's the case. There may be disagreements around projects that, you know, brownfields, contamination versus density, those issues, but I think we've got a hardworking, earnest board who is trying to do their best with all of the information they have before them to balance, you know, getting rid of brownfields and, you know, seeing growth happen, while also, you know, obviously being mindful of the impacts and trying to address them. It seems like a couple of projects have really sparked a big blowback. I just think it's unfair to some of those folks who are served long hours, you guys are there for a lot of the meetings. It's a commitment, and I value it and I appreciate it, and I certainly am looking forward to these folks doing it as well.
Councilor Torrio.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I think given the amount of turnover that we have on the boards, yeah, as Council Prevey and was pointing out, I think periodic or annual or at least periodic training for the boards as to what the regulations are and how a meeting should be conducted. I think that's definitely a worthy thing, something we need to be doing for them. That'll really help the process and help make sure the boards stay within the letter of what they're supposed to be doing. So I think that'll be a tremendous positive. You know, I understand where some of the displeasure with some of the more recent board decisions comes from, and I sympathize somewhat with this. I also look at it as there is a very complicated balance that has to take place when these projects are being proposed and when these projects are going through the boards, as to we have the density versus the, you know, what can we do that will pay for taking a brownfield and cleaning it up? What can we insert into a neighborhood? I understand the balancing act they have to go through, and excuse me, and I see how that doesn't always go the way we'd prefer it to go. I do wish, I know in the particular example that counselors here have been speaking to, they felt that the input that they were trying to provide just wasn't getting looked at strongly enough. And I think maybe that's just an interaction issue. I know when we worked through, as was mentioned earlier in this meeting, the CVS issue, I know there was a lot of feedback from the neighborhood associations. There was a lot of feedback from primarily Councilor O'Keefe and myself as the people who it affected the most directly, the neighbors and the abutters, and we wound up having a pretty good process overall and wound up with a project that was substantially modified to better address the concerns of the neighborhood. And I hope that the planning board, as they go ahead, and hopefully with the additions that we're making to it, I hope, they'll keep that in mind, and I hope our process as these projects are proposed just continues to have that kind of interactivity and, has that reflection of the inputs of everybody as they go forward. And hopefully won't have these kind of issues come forward.
I appreciate that. And it was the same planning board, I think, that voted on CVS, who voted on Salem Oil and Grease for the most part. So I think there is a strong commitment to, as I said, try and balance those interests. And I would ask one last thing, is that most of what we're doing is redevelopment. I mean, we're not planning, this isn't, an opportunity to plan some pasture land and make sure we, have the roads and the schools and the shopping districts set up in the right place. Just about every site we're talking about was something else that unfortunately is fairly contaminated in a brownfield, and they're all the leftover pieces that they're not developed already because, they're hard. So I hope that perspective is also, recognized, and I think it is. I think we're all trying to understand it.
I recognize myself for a minute. Thank you, Madam Mayor, I appreciate it. And I mean, given the nature of things, and in the years I've been on the council, most of us have attended 100 to 200 planning board and board of appeals meetings with 5 to 10 things on the agenda. So we've had all seen about 500 things come before us, and some we speak for, some we speak against, and some we just listen. So there's a lot of back and forth. I mean, for instance, something like the Highland Avenue across from Mandarin Buffet, where they wanted to build many units to pay for the price of blasting a cliff out. And the board stuck to their guns and didn't feel they had to make that person's investment right. With density variance. They would have had 3 or 4 times the amount of units, that the rest of the neighborhood had, so, and through lawsuits and everything else. Other things, one thing I was trying to get through on a few projects was relief for Flint Street, whether it be the storage facility, putting another lane to the right to go up Grove Street right on Red.
Yep.
Salem Swade with maybe a road behind the houses to get one way and one way the other way to get relief. And the last one was, one that hasn't come to fruition, but the one along the river, to put a road along the river to come out near the Moose Lodge and have that unofficial 128,
Yeah.
connector.
Yeah, alternate,
Where,
right?
yeah. 3 different ways to try and get relief from that Flint Street. Having walked to and from there from high school and, for 4 years and seeing the near misses on people and vehicles, that was motivating me. And I'll still keep after that, and we'll,
So the good news is we have some money coming in on all of those projects to put towards,
I'll be quick, gotta reload. Okay, good.
so the good news is we have some revenue coming in from all those projects as part of impacts to help address some of those things. And some of those are problems that exist now. They'll get exacerbated, obviously, by development activity. We've got a grant in for Mass Works to look at putting that road in. We've had discussions, very positive dialogue with the self-storage facility to sneak another road in there so we can have some alternate routes consistent with FST recommendations. So I really feel like we're going to be able to do some infrastructure upgrades, partly with private financing, partly with hopefully some grant money, to improve the circumstances, especially the traffic and circulation patterns down there. And that's another, that's one of those pluses that sometimes gets left off because those linkage or impacts are not really addressed until the very end of the meeting. But these developments also bring an opportunity to cure some of the ills that we already have. And I think this one in particular, the last 2 in that area, we're planning on making access and circulation improvements and are trying to find ways to put the revenues together to do that.
I appreciate that. And the last thing, if I could impress upon board members whenever they come before us, is that we're planning more than just buildings. Sometimes we're planning whether or not families can stay together, whether or not grandfathers and grandmothers visit their grandchildren in part of Salem or Groveland or Georgetown. And the Strongwater Brook Project, when they had the 200 or so 2-acre lots, and they were bringing them down into 1-acre lots, and we were fighting very hard to try and get 100 1-acre lots. And they were starting at 15,000, and we wanted it to be a step above Witchcraft Heights.
Yep.
To keep people in the city, to keep our best and brightest and most successful, and we did. And we got some larger lots in that comp, and that was a pretty good fight, but I think the end was worth it, on both sides, coming together to some 40,000 square foot lots.
Yep.
And
And preserved a lot of the open space,
Right.
cluster development, didn't have as
Exactly.
much of an impact on the hard land.
I
Yeah, no,
haven't
it's
started
great.
in the projects in Rainbow Terrace myself. I know people that, through factory jobs, have put their kids through college and are real happy when they get the big job and real happy when they get the raise, and very sad when they tell them they're moving to Groveland because they now get the big money. And it was just, that human factor and that planning families is, is just something that I really would like to impress upon the board members, that we're, there's a lot more going on than just the bricks and mortar.
True.
And Council McCarthy?
One last thing before we adjourn.
Yes, please.
Going back to the discussion earlier, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that we did that over at Salem State. I remember it was a Saturday morning.
Yes.
Brought all the boards in, brought up, the council in as well, to just learn about open meeting law, stuff like that. But I believe we've had this conversation, if I've had it with you, Mayor, I've had it with Beth. I think that when you also, that whole conversation needs to be taken to another level when it becomes to the people who are the chairman of these boards. Because I think that there needs to be a certain level of expectation from anybody who comes into that room that the process is going to be the same in front of every board. That anyone who walks in, like if they walk into this room, there's a certain expectation. If you've been in here before, that the conversations go through the chair.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when it comes to the boards, that all the boards are run the same way, so there isn't any of that, sidebar conversations or any of that going on, or it doesn't seem like if someone's just showing up because they have an interest in a project because they think it will impact them, all of a sudden they see the lawyer from the developer telling the board what they should be doing or what the next steps are. I think there really needs to be a second level to that conversation, that the people who are, either they're appointed or they're elected or however they become to be chairman of those boards, they need to go to that second level and really understand this is how they have to run it, just so that there is no.
It has to be for everyone,
It has to be the
Bob,
same for
because
everyone. I
the
agree
board
with that.
members then need to know
Right.
how these boards are going to be conducted, and,
Yeah.
I think we can double everyone's pay and maybe get them to do more. Some of it is, the people bring different skill sets to
Right, I
those
know.
positions, but I think the training is a terrific opportunity for us, and we can certainly stress and impress upon chairs about order, consistency, decorum, some of what you're speaking
Right.
about, for sure.
Anybody else? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Before we adjourn, thank Madam Mayor for coming and the appointees, and I think this was very positive. I think we got to know each other a little bit better through this process, and I appreciate it.
Same here. One logistical question. Are we expecting these folks to come back on the night of the meeting, or is tonight's going to suffice and you could, could pass on to the other colleagues where they're at? I just hate to
Right,
grab
right.
people out twice a night and they've also got meetings.
Good point. Council Prevey?
One of the things I think through you, Mr. Chairman, we have to look at is there's something in the city ordinance that says when someone's appointed for the first time, they have to be present, but we'd have to look into that, so.
Well, it would be great if we could save everyone another night out, since they've already sort of answered everyone's questions except those who weren't here. So maybe I could follow up with the city clerk, and if there's no objections to the committee, and it's not a violation of the rules that we follow, just have folks, this would suffice for their attendance
Might I
requirements.
suggest you run it by Council O'Keefe also, I think.
He's right there,
well,
yeah.
Council O'Keefe, if we, tonight when we adjourn, ask him about it, and I'm fine with that. I think we've had a very good process.
Any objections if they don't show up at their meeting? As long as, we can get consensus with the rest of your colleagues and reach out to the city clerk?
We'll do that.
Okay, great, thanks.
We'll entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Moving to adjourn, second? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? As Council O'Keefe would say, unanimous. Meeting stands adjourned at about 7:10 PM. Take a recess.
Committee will come to order. City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, met in the council chamber on Wednesday, January 16, 2007, at 7:25 PM for the purpose of discussing the matter listed below. Notice of this meeting was posted on January 14, 2013, at 9:08 a.m. We have members of Administration and Finance that are here. Councilor Turiel, Councilor McCarthy, absent is Councilor Fury, and Councilor Carr. Myself as chair. We have non-members of the committee of the whole members, Councilor O'Keefe, Councilor Sargent, Councilor Legault, and Councilor Ryan. Yep, and that's everybody. So tonight we have one matter, Council Order number 16. It's the lease agreement for the premises located at 120 Washington Street, City Hall Annex. And that was something that was submitted by the mayor. We have with us tonight, we had invited the mayor, city solicitor, the building inspector, and the purchasing agent. We have the city solicitor here and the purchasing agent. Welcome. And Tom St. Pierre has a conflict. He's over at the ZBA as the advisor to that board. And there was a conflict with the finance director. He was invited as well. He had a personal commitment that he was unable to make tonight. So why don't we just start? Beth, do you want to make a presentation to the committee about this?
Last fall, the city put out an RFP for office space for the annex building. In October, the city only received one proposal from the current landlord, RCG. There's a summary that I believe you have that Rich Biscay did. This is the time when there was a transition in the purchasing department. Whitney came on after the proposals were collected by the city. So in the letter that we have from Rich Biscay, he outlines the terms of the proposal submitted by RCG. And you see that year one is at $366,000 plus a portion of taxes that are paid by RCG. And this will represent a savings of over $22,000 each year as opposed to what the city is paying now. It is a short-term lease with the option to extend it 7 additional years in 1-year increments. But the belief was that, with this shorter term, that the city will have the opportunity to explore other sites for the annex building. That we've discussed at many other meetings before tonight. So I think it's pretty simple. I think you have a copy of the lease agreement. There will be some upgrades to the rugs, the painting, the elevator that's incorporated into the lease. We have eliminated the HVAC maintenance charge that was in the current lease, but the other terms are generally the same.
Now, Beth, I have a question. We have the 3-year lease. I know there's some legal issues relative to this. So after the end of the 3 years, the option to extend 7 additional years annually, is that something that has to come in front of the council, or is that something that the administration can do on their own?
It depends on how the order is written there.
Okay.
Some leases, the council has said, they approve a 3-year with a 7-year, and there's no qualifications there. But there are other orders that the council has written that says that if this is extended, I think we might have done it with the trash contract, that you need to come back to council. So that could easily be done by the order.
Good. That would be something then I would propose when the time comes. In terms of the upgrade, I know there was language in there because I read through the lease proposal. There's language about the upgrades that are supposed to be completed within a specified period of time. Can you speak to that specifically?
I didn't negotiate those changes. That's something Tom and Rich did. I know that there were allotments for rugs and painting in the elevator, but as far as the timetable and what they negotiated and why, I really can't speak to that.
Okay.
I don't think you're either.
I think there was a reference to something like a 90-day period of time, Right, and I just want to make sure that, that they're held to that too, that if there's a specified time period, that they actually do follow through with that, and that a year later, we're not struggling with them to try to get them to do this type of stuff. Because I think we want to make sure that if the lease is adopted, it's written favorably to both parties, understandably, but also that the city doesn't end up getting any type of short end of the stick, so to speak. The other thing I want to ask about is, it talks about the upgrades to the elevator, and essentially what it says in the lease is the upgrades are going to be consisting of renovation or replacement of paneling in the inside of the cab. One of the issues, and I understand it's an old elevator, from everything that I hear from people, that it breaks down rather frequently. Are there any proposed changes or upgrades in this lease that are designed to address that?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I will check with Tom on that.
Okay. Because I think that's important, especially if we keep having, I mean, the elevator, if the elevator breaks down and you have a meeting at 120 Washington Street, then you can't go over. You know, I mean, that's a serious problem. So I think as opposed to just us agreeing to having superficial changes on the inside of the cab, maybe or mechanical changes and upgrades so that we don't keep having this problem. So the other issue I have is on parking. One of the things that is not here, and we were just kind of talking about, you know, planning board and ZBA, whenever there's any type of proposals for parking, we always get like a parking plan. Is there an actual schematic that was submitted to identify exactly what these parking spaces are in the back of 120 Washington Street?
Hold on.
Maybe Whitney has that.
It's actually in, Mr. Chairman,
Councilor McCarthy?
it's actually in the original lease that's also on everyone's desk, that from 2000.
2000?
Yeah, and I flipped through it earlier and I read it. It references spaces out back, and if it shall be greater, X amount of spaces under the building. And I remember reading, it's in here someplace.
And it talks about 8 spaces
Yes.
specifically?
Yeah, so, and I did happen, when I was flipping through it earlier, and I didn't highlight it, I apologize, but I know it's in here someplace.
Okay.
I saw the same thing.
Was there,
Make sure that is referenced.
okay.
Section,
I really don't want to see the city get short.
On which page?
Section 10, page 8 at the bottom is parking. 5 spaces and then 8 spaces.
Yeah, there it is.
Beth, to your knowledge, has there been any issues with that? Because currently we're afforded 8 spaces right now under the current.
No, in fact, I know that other employees have been parking there as, in addition to the people that are allowed to, so,
Okay.
but I'm aware.
So we've been actually getting extra parking?
I understand.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that that doesn't become an issue down the line where if we've got 8 vehicles or spaces for vehicles, that all of a sudden the landlord doesn't come forward and say, no, you only got 5 now.
I'll monitor that, I'll check with them.
Okay. And I think those are all the things I have for right now. Any members of the committee have any questions? Councilor Peak?
Not being a member of the committee, let's look at page 8 again, about parking. I was original signatory of that, and I was under the impression that there'd be spaces under the building, down the ramp, the door would go up, and you go in under the building for additional spaces. That never happened. Never happened. Now, what's gonna happen now? We're not getting those?
No.
No. We're going to the 5 outside that are constantly seem to be filled by people and other tenants in the building, not our people, even though the signs say City of Salem employees.
I'm not familiar with the parking situation.
Okay. So they never agreed to this inside the building? No. They're violating our contract?
I'll
Okay.
check with Tom, they may have been some.
All right. Can I ask one last question?
Councilor Keefe?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. What is the status of our acquisition of the district court, which I think is part of this whole business, is if we're gonna do this, what are we gonna eventually do about getting our hands the city's hands on that property, the building.
I know that the mayor and the planning director are working with the state on the disposition of.
Have we got any documents from TCAM about this, or?
I can ask Lynn Duncan, she
Can
did
you,
mention it.
through you, Mr. Chairman,
at
could
a
we
staff
get an
meeting.
update from the mayor's office as to the acquisition of the vacant district court property, Washington Street?
Council Churchill?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Page 10 of the current lease addresses 8 parking spaces, all of which shall be exterior. And just to expound for a moment on it all, I know that there are the courthouse properties that are turning over from the state to be reused, and that's a potential place for us down the road. I think right now, one of the things with the Peabody block, the original Peabody block lease, despite the flaws in it, I do think that having the annex located there over the last 10 odd years has been a nice factor in helping to drive some of the revitalization of that little section of Washington Street and the shops and restaurants around it. I think that's been an asset overall to the community, having the annex located there and on a main street. There are deficiencies to being there, there are access issues, and I don't think that the Peabody block is our long-term solution for the, for the City Hall annex. And hopefully maybe we can, if down the road with the disposition of the courthouses, if we can locate it down there long-term, that might be able to help drive some more development down and help some of the businesses down at that end of the street. So we'll see what this goes in the future. I mean, at this point, I don't really see any better options appearing on the horizon over the next 2, 3, 4 years. But given the time frame that the state generally has for things and the time it would take to renovate a building or rebuild a building suitably for our use, but until then, I think this is our best option. But I would like to see us move that to a better location down the road, and hopefully we can work with the state on this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Little off subject here on that subject of an alternative location for the past 2 years. Each of the past 2 years, in the month of January, I submitted a council order that a committee formed to look into the options. However, that's not the matter before us tonight, but just for everybody's knowledge, I will be doing that again at the next council meeting. The other thing that I want to bring up here is, I have several questions on this entire contract. For the most part, I think the contract is fairly good, except I have a couple of questions, if you'd help me with these. Page 3, paragraph number 8, the option to extend, right, the lease here. The paragraph, the third paragraph of section 8, annual rent and monthly installments for each option term shall increase by 3% from the rent of the prior year. Can we just add the word by a maximum of 3%? And the reason why I say that is the industry standard for commercial property is by going what they refer to as the consumer price index, and the consumer price index right now is about 2.7 something. All right, so I'd like to at least put just a max of 3% on that, and that would be the first request I would have in that.
Is that an issue? You don't see? Okay.
Same page, paragraph 9. I'm a little confused here by some of the language here. The tenant shall be obligated to pay the landlord 41.7% of any amount of real estate taxes that are in excess of the base year real estate tax amount of $23,109. All right, if you look at what we're being assessed on the cover page by Mr. Viscay, we're paying $3,424 a month, which is $41,088 per year. What is the tax rate? I mean, which one are we paying? And if we're only paying 41% of a base of 23, how'd we get to 44?
What the calculation in the original lease said was that we would pay the difference between the year of the lease and every year the difference between that and a certain percentage. So what that is saying is that there's a floor of 23,000. So let's say the property taxes are 200,000. We would pay 41% of the difference between 200,000 and the 23, so 83, whatever it is, that we would pay 41%.
Are we going to be capped at 41,088?
No, it's whatever, it goes up, and it has gone up every year.
Okay, thank you. The next question, page 4, paragraph 12. On the condition of the premises here, it says that an allowance for work shall be $12,000 for carpeting. All right, is that a one-time deal or is that an annual amount? And the reason why I ask that is the lowest grade commercial carpeting roughly runs $10 a yard. All right, if we're renting or leasing 20,000 square feet, that's a little bit over 2,200 square yards. $1,200 just for the price of the carpet at $10 and probably an equal price for installation, never mind people that may or may not have to be contracted to move things out of the way for that installation. That only amounts to a little bit over 2,000 yards that would be available total. All right, and I mean, excuse me, that's not what that's not what that amounts to. That amounts to a whole lot less, and I have my numbers someplace else. It's 600 yards, excuse me. All right, so that's less, almost 1/4 of the building. So that's why I'm asking: is this a one-time deal, or because part of this lease says they would be the landlord would be responsible for normal wear and tear?
This is in addition, there are certain areas that the landlord would maintain as normal repairs. But this is, I think what they plan to do would be using those squares, so they wouldn't rip up, in the planning department, for example, they may just do the track in between the desks. So they had worked this out the last time we were looking, and they calculated how many square feet of rug we would need for certain areas. Not ripping out the whole rug, but placing squares by squares or sections of rug.
So then, Mr. Chairman, I'd go back to my original question. Is this an annual amount that they would allocate?
No.
Or it's a one-shot deal? All right, thank you. And I don't know why they're just why are they putting a cap on it? Why don't they fix what needs to be fixed regardless of the cost, and then we go from there?
I believe it's something that was negotiated with Tom when they calculated the calculations.
All right, and I've only got a couple more questions for you here. The first one is, Mr. Chairman, are we paying for utilities separately? And do we know how much those are?
Yes.
How much?
I did not bring that with me, but I can get that to you.
In the budget.
We did the analysis the last time.
I saw some of the numbers there, but they didn't add up, so I'm trying to figure it out, because again, industry standards are about $2 a square foot, so for gas and electricity, so I'm trying to figure out if we're at that $40,000 a year mark.
It does come up, Counselor, in the, when we do the budget.
Right.
I mean, all the line items are there, so that's something obviously we'll obviously be looking at during the budget season, but if that's something that you want information on now, I'm sure that can be provided to us.
I'd like to get that information if I could, please. And then the last question is, and someone asked me to ask this question, and that is this what is referred to as a three-tiered lease?
Three-tiered lease?
Yeah, actually, are we going to open this up for public discussion, for input?
It's
Mr.
a committee
Chairman?
meeting. Anyone from the public can certainly, once the committee is done asking questions, we can
All right,
certainly.
then I would put that question off for a while until the public forum is open. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, not being a member of the committee.
Any other members of the committee or committee of the whole have any questions? Beth, when Counselor Sosnowski was on page 4, section 12, that makes reference to what I brought up earlier. It says, probably in the second paragraph, says commencement of the date of the lease, provided that the lease is signed at least 90 days prior to the commencement day. Does that talk about the scope of work being done prior to that?
Is that your understanding? No.
My understanding is that it means if we sign the lease at least 90 days before that, they agree to do that, and if we don't, then they don't. That's just the way I'm reading it.
Yeah, that is not.
Which could be a problem because there isn't
Yeah, we don't have.
Right, we don't have 90 days because the lease is supposed to be signed by March,
I think
okay.
it may be an oversight from the original proposal that was back in October when there was 90 days.
I don't want us to get, because they could come back and say, well, there's not a 90-day time frame, and so therefore we're not bound to do the scope of work being proposed. Anything further from the committee at this point? If not, is there any, Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment, a bunch of the questions that have been asked tonight with regards to the 90 days, and I don't disagree with that, that should be, hammered out. A couple of years ago, when this came in front of us, I had a lot of these conversations with Tom St. Pierre, because Tom St. Pierre was on the committee on that, and I wish he was here tonight, because he was on the committee on that side of it when they were coming into this agreement, because a lot of these things that have gone, the last couple of years that have gone unfixed or unaddressed, that was a lot of what they were trying to negotiate into it. They looked at a lot, Councilor Sosnowski brings up the carpet. They really looked at the areas that needed carpet, most of which, a lot of them are in the common areas where the people are, the areas like when you get out on the third floor, the meeting rooms, the area where, the differential spots between the, where his office is, where the planning board is, and where Ms. Haskell's office is for purchasing, that common area, that was where they were addressing a lot of that stuff. They really weren't getting into the nuts and bolts, like they weren't gonna re-carpet Tom's office. But they were gonna look at a lot of the common areas, just to, because obviously, we've been in there for 10+ years now, and there's been a lot of wear and tear, but when you look back at the original lease agreement, there wasn't a lot of language in there for that, and that's, that was, when we were here a couple of years ago, that was the intent, to try to get some of these things cleared up and get into a lease agreement that would allow some options out after a certain amount of time. Because, obviously, I think it says it in a letter from the mayor, and I think everyone in this room would say the same thing. No one's ultimate long-term goal is to stay in 120 forever. I think that, we look at, if the courthouses become available and if it passes through that system of availability to different agencies first and it comes to the city and we're able to move forward, then I think that's a positive for us and a positive for the city to move forward. Because when you go back to the original lease agreement on the second or third to last page, Councilor Ryan was just flipping through it, and I remember, and they have the sheets of who voted for this lease agreement 10 years ago, and I remember talking to Councilor Lovely, I've talked to former Councilor Laura Toma Swanson, and obviously the mayor's name's on this because she was then the Ward 5 councilor. A lot of people were in favor of the lease at that time because of what it had the chance to do, what it did do was increase a lot of foot traffic and bring a lot of vibrancy to a block that was down. Obviously, I think that block could stand on its own now. I don't think that block will, wither away and not be viable without us in it. So I think it's time, I think everyone agrees it's time for us to move on. Much as we did one move from 1 Salem Green over to there and allow 1 Salem Green, now it's time for us to move on. Unfortunately, we as a city tend to be the worst, our own worst landlords. We're the last people that are gonna spend money on paint or carpet. Even if we deemed it necessary, we'd like to make sure that the owner of the building in this case would do that. So I think that this, it's a short, for them, it's a short-term lease with a lot of options, and I think that the point that you made, Chairman, you brought it up, that, after the 3 years, if it comes back to renewing for the next year, then there should be some sort of language that comes back in front of us. And then if it does, it comes back in front of this body. But then, when you look into the language of the original lease and to the situation we're in now, is even if we, as a body, failed to extend that, then there would probably be some sort of, obviously, if we fail to extend it, we have no place to go, then we have to stay. So there's got to be some sort of language in there that there's some automatic escalator clause somewhere or something. And that's what got us into this predicament now, because with those automatic escalator clauses, I know that was a big thing, was our portion of the property taxes relative to the fact that it was an automatic kicker, plus we just went through a reval. And when that property got reevaluated, because of all the other development in that block with regards to Gulu Gulu, Upper Crust, Cafe Polonia, the restaurants, all of a sudden, the evaluation of that property went up, and we were still responsible for our percentage, so that's, you know, I mean, I'm not a big, you know, I think that, you know, we should be to the point where now that I will support Council Sosnowski's, you know, endeavor to, you know, come up and form a committee somehow and take a real hard look at the long-term, you know, solution for this. But I think for the short term, I think that, you know, I'll have a conversation with the building commissioner, Mr. St. Pierre, again, to make sure that, as I did a few years ago, to make sure that, you know, a lot of the areas that because they're the ones that are there all the time. They're the ones that really identify the needs and with regards to it, and make sure that those areas are gonna be addressed.
And certainly my proposal to make sure that we change the language to allow, to require this thing to come in front of us after the 3 years before the renewals are done. So we can stay involved in that process and make sure that, you know, the council can examine at that point in time, what are our other options, if any, at that point. And if not, then obviously we renew it and we stay where we are at 120 Washington Street until something viable develops, and that's something that I think the council should show great interest in, as opposed to just sitting back and saying, it's another 10-year lease, essentially, and sit back. Councilor Churro?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to propose that those clarifications that we just discussed, the clarification on the 90-day term, the 90-day notice because of the time frame here, I'd like to make sure that that clarification is added to the lease. I would also, at the same time, like to see a provision added to it that the renewal, the automatic renewal, just come before the council for approval in 3 years, rather than it just automatically rolling over if nothing happens. So with those, if we can so move, I'd like to move that we approve this, but with those, to make sure that those caveats are and clarifications are added in.
Let me propose something further, and I'll certainly leave it to the will of the committee. Do we want to have a further meeting to coordinate with the building inspector to have him in and ask some specifics on this? That would be my only hesitation, and we could do it next week sometime, just to get the building inspector in and hash out some of the specifics regarding the issues Councilor Sosnowski raised. Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't have a problem with doing that at our regularly scheduled committee meeting next Thursday. The only thing, that I would have to check with him first, because he sits on the board of the North Shore Regional Voc. Right. So they're like every other Thursday, and I don't know if they coincide with ours or not. So sometimes he has to go to those meetings, so he wouldn't be available. But whereas at 6 o'clock, he might be available, so.
Right, why don't we try figuring next week at the very least at our regular Thursday meeting. We also have, we're gonna take up Bertram Field too, that matter.
Okay.
The city planner will be in to address the committee on that as well. So we'll either fit that in there, and depending on the building inspector's schedule, that maybe we can have it the day before, we'll have a short meeting and just ask them the specifics regarding the details of the plant facility itself and what we've negotiated. So, Councilor Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be fine with that, with that provision.
Very good. For the record, also, we're joined by Councilor Fury, who is a member of the committee. Anything you'd like to say, Councilor?
Yes, but if you look back at the record of the history of the 120 Washington Street, Councilor Hayes, Councilor O'Leary, Councilor Fury were opposed to the original agreement. So it's been a controversial situation, and Salem is not a great tenant over the years. And I sincerely hope that we do set up a committee. Councilor Sosnowski wants to set up a committee. We did set up a committee as of February 2011. That committee has never met on 120 Washington Street. We have this before us. So if we set up another committee, I hope we do meet before the next contract again is renewed, because that committee never met.
Amen.
So communication's a two-way street for me. And this is the mayor's undertaking, and we don't have anything to show. Back 10 to 12 years ago, I think Councilor Pinto and I agreed on something in common. I agreed on before this, 120 Washington Street, I believed in the old telephone building as the 120 Washington Street, and the Council on Aging, and the Boys Club with Steve O'Grady. That was a prime site, a good site. We missed that opportunity. Now, I just got back from Salem State College tonight, working at Salem State College for the first night of the semester. They're interested in one of the courthouses too. taking over one of the courthouses. So the sooner we get on the track and making, if that's a viability of using one of those courthouses as a 120 Washington Street annex somewhere in the future, next 2 or 3 years, we need to get on that, make sure we meet on a regular basis, so we don't get 3 years from now, no action by us.
Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have your allowance to go a little bit off subject this evening to talk about what Councilor Fury is referring to?
Briefly.
I'll make it very brief. I couldn't agree with you anymore that we've dropped the ball on that one, absolutely. However, relative to various sites, the Church Street lot is probably the most viable site. When you talk about the district court over here, the Registry of Deeds wanted to look at that, and they had an estimate of around $15 million to refurbish the existing building, and decided it was cheaper to tear it down and start anew. All right, so inasmuch as the State College may or may not be interested in it, let them have it. We don't have $15 million right now at this point, all right? And that would be overburden. That would be too much for this. We need to start with something that we can get virtually in, and we can do public-private partnerships potentially with the situation over here, put multiple levels of parking, put a council on aging center potentially, put an annex there, put retail first floor. There's a whole bunch of options available. Even one option would...
Oh, hold on.
I love our antiquated systems here.
This is with us on TV.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Are we on? There's even another option. Across the street here, the old First National food shop there, Mike Allen's building, the Red Lion Smoke Shop. Foodland, excuse me. You're right, Counselor. Right. Want to go bowl 10 pins down under the AMP down the end of the street here? Build this out over here as an annex and put a pedestrian bridge across between the two buildings as the bank has out back here. It could be done. There's so many options that are around us. Prior to us dropping that ball a couple of years ago when we first put this in, there were buildings right here behind us on Essex Street that became available that would have been perfect, absolutely perfect. And again, we dropped the ball.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Keith.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, not being a member of the committee, I would like the committee to find out for certain the problems with the elevator and what RCG knows about the elevator. It's inspected. It has a permit. I see the permit posted, but it seems to be out of service all the time. And how do we have public hearings on the 3rd floor of that building when there's no elevator? That's against the law. We need to know what's wrong with the elevator and what the long-term fix is to fix it. I don't think it was put in there when the building was built in the Civil War, but it's been modified since. But there's something wrong with that elevator there, and it needs to be addressed.
We'll have the building inspector and we'll ask him.
Positively, he knows all about it.
Want to open this up to public if there's any public commentary?
Well, not being a member of committee, I can't make that suggestion.
Okay. Anyone from the public want to address the committee? Step forward, name and address. Thank you.
T.C. Riley Goggin, 9 Wisteria Street. I spoke to this issue at the last council meeting, and the 3-tier, I can't remember exactly, I don't have my paperwork with me, but I know anyone who has the 10-year lease should have it in there, the 3-tier. And I know part of it was that we helped pay taxes or mortgage or something like that. There were 3 areas that brought it up. I thought the solicitor would have it. But anyone, if they look into that lease that we had for 10 years, we did agree with RCG to give them additional benefits over and above. Real estate companies do this frequently when they write agreements. But the other thing I would like to, I'm putting that back in your ballpark right now. But the other thing I would like is the fact that we have public hearings there all the time. The boards have these small little speaking back and forth between them. We asked before a couple of years back if RCG in the building, if we would have a part of our lease, that they would provide a PA system which would be beneficial to all of us so we knew exactly what was going on. So we have a lease now. I think you should add that to it. But the next thing is, I think the only way you're going to have a committee who's going to really go out and do something with the busyness and the hard work that you do, because some people forget that we do not have full-time counselors. We have counselors who work hard at other businesses, and the small pittance that you receive per year for what you do does not cover hardly anything more than a few things down the line per month that you might need. But right now, I'm saying, I think if you had some public input into, or a couple of people who are interested in looking and going out and seeking out, similar to what they had for the Senior Site Committee, not probably as an in-depth, but something just to keep prodding you just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the council chamber that wants to address the committee? Thank you. Beth was going to make a formal motion for the lease after the 3 years come back in front of the committee. I'm chair, I'd rather not make that, so Councilor Churio.
Thank you. I'll also move that we have added to the lease the language that would come back before us in 3 years rather than automatically renewing. I would also so move that the language be clarified, as we have already discussed with regards to the work that needs to take place there. And, you know, finally, on top of that, I would move that we table this matter to be continued next week depending on the building inspector's availability, to either Wednesday evening for a meeting then, or to our A&F meeting scheduled for next Thursday regularly.
Second.
On Councilor Churio's motion, as he's just stated, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Members of the committee, all those in favor? All those opposed? So voted. Any other matters in front of the committee, Councilor Churio?
I move we adjourn.
For adjournment. All those in favor, all those opposed, so voted. Thank you. Thank you, Beth.